Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Austin Bunce. I'm the general manager for the men's and women's basketball teams at Davidson. My assistant general manager can't be here tonight. He has a game against the Lakers in about 2.5 hours. One quick housekeeping item before I kick it over to Coach Folks. The Q&A button that you'll see at the bottom of your screen is how we're going to do question and answer today. So feel free to click on Q&A. You can submit questions at any time. We'll be able to see them. And then after Coach's presentation, we'll get into Q&A and have more of a free-flowing conversation from there as well. So, Gail, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Austin, and thanks to all of you that have kind of made the trip to Zoom for tonight. I'm so excited about everything I'm going to share with you. I feel very passionately about it, and really just can't wait to kind of get things going in a couple of weeks. So with that, we can kind of turn the presentation over real quick. And I think the thing that I really want to kind of start with is that, for us, when I got the job here, when I got the job here 9 years ago, something that was really important to me was that we were going to build a brand of basketball around some certain basketball attributes, and those are share, shoot, and stifle, which I think many of you guys are familiar with, but then also around this idea of cohesion and being the most cohesive program in the country. And for me, that means that, hey, when we're suiting up to play against another team, it is all of us against the other team, and that's coaches, that's players, that's support staff, but it's all of us kind of rowing in one direction. And we want to work hard at being cohesive in how we communicate, but also in the way that we play. And what that's really led to is I've had a really stable coaching staff, and I think many of you had a chance to kind of get to know the people on my staff, starting with James Jansen, my associate head coach, who's going into year 9 with me, and then Jasmine Jenkins, our recruiting coordinator, who's going into year 5. Laura Berry, who is going into year 3, and then Ryan Bauder, who quite frankly has been here also all 9 years, just in different capacities. But really, I would say that right now our coaching staff is probably the most experienced in the Atlantic 10, and I'm really proud of that. I think they're great people that make me better, and they've done a tremendous job of helping me find players that really fit Davidson College. But with that, I would say that the thing that really sets our program apart right now in 2025 and all of the craziness of college athletics is that we've had great stability. I've been here 8 years or 9 years now, going into year 9, and through the first 8, I've never had anyone walk into my office and say that they want to transfer. And because of that, we've been able to really build this program organically through kind of player development, continuing to sort of invest in our current roster, and then occasionally kind of tackle things through the transfer portal, which I'm sure many of you guys have kind of heard about. But with the transfer portal, Davidson has some challenges, and I think it's something that has been a helpful thing for right now, but really was challenging the last couple of years in that Davidson does not allow transfers that are past their sophomore year of college eligibility, just due to our admission standards. And so for us, we've really built through younger players, and now we're starting to see those younger players have a lot of experience and get a chance to move on. So with that, I think it's important to kind of start talking about just where we are as a program and where we've kind of, where we've been and where we need to get to. And really, I would say women's basketball history here is still fairly limited. We've had 1 regular season conference title. We've had 0 NCAA tournament appearances. We've had 2 WNIT appearances and now 1 WBIT appearance. And so I say all of that to just say that the reason that some of this has happened is that we haven't been playing women's basketball at Davidson for that long. It hasn't really been until about the 92-93 season where it was really started to become a funded program here at Davidson. And so we're a little behind, but that's okay. I'm going into the 9th year here, and now that COVID is over and sort of that +1, extra year, which meant a lot of rosters were getting older, I feel very confident that we've been able to kind of build a really sustainable program that I'm optimistic that can be able to compete for championships, annually. So kind of with that, I think the other thing to sort of understand about women's basketball is that there's been a lot of change in the environment where now, similar to what men's basketball has had in the past, there are now units that exist in women's basketball. Meaning, if you make the NCAA tournament and you win games in the NCAA tournament, your conference and your institution is able to now be compensated financially for those wins. And so with that, there's now additional financial incentives and a larger return on the investment for programs to be pouring kind of resources into their women's basketball programs. And so what we've had at Davidson is a steady increase in investment. And I'm so thankful to Chris Clooney, the Berman family, the Curry family, for just their generosity to continue to invest in us, because I really believe now we've got the tools in place to be an annual competitor for the NCAA tournament. And while that's hard to do, there's not that many at-large bids, and there's some things that are, challenging with that. I do feel like we've positioned ourselves with how we've grown our program to be in a spot that we can compete for those regularly. So kind of from that as a starting point, I want to talk a little bit about recruiting and just sort of how we go about that, because recruiting is the lifeblood of every single college basketball program. But what we've chosen to do is that we've relentlessly recruited to a style of play of share, shoot, and stifle. And what I mean by share, shoot, and stifle is that we want players at all 5 positions that can really pass the ball, shoot the ball, and take a lot of pride on the defensive end. And what we found is that we will go anywhere. Thanks to Steph Curry and that national global brand, everyone in the world has heard of Davidson College. And we've really leveraged that in our recruiting. And so what we have now is that whether there was somebody right down the road like Mallory Haynes or Ellie Sutphin a couple years ago, we now have players that are coming from 7 different countries and 5 different states. And so we're finding people that really fit us, that really believe in Davidson from anywhere. And I think that's made us have quite the advantage in the Atlantic 10, where many other programs are having to recruit much more regionally. But with that, we're finding that we still have to recruit players that are not only great at basketball, but really intelligent, scholar athletes, and quite frankly, even better humans. They're all women that I want to be around every single day, that with my 2 small kids, they're really big sisters to them as well. And so for me, that's why we've had this stability, is that we have not compromised at all in the type of players that we need to have here at Davidson, which are ones that fit the academic requirements, those that love being part of a tight-knit community, and then those that also can handle the academic, rigors of Davidson College. So it's been fun to add these players, and I can't wait to kind of talk to you about a few of them here soon. But we were very fortunate to be picked 3rd this year in the preseason Atlantic 10 conference standings, which is really a testament, I think, to our stability, because we did graduate a lot of talent last year. And so we had 3 players, starting with Charlize Dunn, our lone senior, who was selected as preseason first team and also to the all-defensive team. And let me tell you, Charlize has been absolutely incredible developing as a leader. She's just so tenacious in everything that she does, and has really improved her skill set now that she's had a full off season coming back from surgery last year. We also have Katie Donovan, who was named second team all-conference as a junior. That has really been a very reliable player that we've enjoyed kind of seeing her development. She led us in minutes last year, was our second leading scorer, and really was someone that I really had a hard time taking off the floor because of how versatile she was. I have been joking with the media earlier today, but Charlize Dunn and Katie Donovan have sort of been coined by our conference as the Donovans. Which I think is quite funny. They obviously have dark hair and can be difficult to tell on film, but the fact that they are so interchangeable in what we do has really kind of cast a bit of I would say, fear in our opponents, that they're kind of known as the Donovans across the Atlantic 10. And then I'm excited for Candace Leonafa, a sophomore that was voted to the 3rd team preseason all-conference, who was also on the all-rookie team last year, in her development. We've seen great growth from her. And are expecting her to kind of break out for us this season. So with those 3 obviously earning these preseason accolades, I think that the strength of this team is actually, the other players as well, that I would view as, at times just as capable as these 3. We have a real high volume of players who are in their 2nd year in our program that I think have made really big improvements from year 1 to year 2. And starting with Jasmine Timerson, one of our now juniors, but in her 2nd year in our program, has just become an unbelievable leader, a really steady presence. And with our youth this year, has really stepped in to sort of take on a lot of leadership responsibility. We also have Emily Bessel and Adina Strauss, who have come a long way. I would say Emily has developed into one of the most dynamic players in transition that we have ever had here at Davidson. And Adina Strauss is just doing a tremendous job of being a huge low block presence that, we have not had in years past. Those combined with Sienna Dower, who last year had earned many valuable minutes late in conference play, has really turned into quite the defensive stopper for us. And I think those three have made huge jumps, along with Kiera Brundonks, who was nominated to the All-Rookie team last year and sort of took the reins as our starting point guard at times with Izzy Morgan out. Have just had tremendous summers, kind of leading, joining us now back here at Davidson, even more prepared to take a big jump. With that, we have a couple new newcomers as well that have really stepped into what I would say seamless roles here, starting with Angie Ziaka from Greece, who was a transfer from the University of San Francisco. And Angie has just been tremendous. It feels as though she's been here, since day one, which is, really hard to do as a transfer, but she's just had such a great personality. But, her shooting and playmaking and defense has really stood out for us, coming from San Francisco, where she was a member of the all-rookie team. And then we've had a few freshmen, Inez Garcia and Elena Alvarez, that have really stepped up so far and being very well prepared for college basketball. They both were members of their national teams this past summer, where Inez won a gold medal in the under-18 Euro Championships, and Elena won the bronze medal as part of the under-19 World Cup. And so I think those two are coming into college basketball just with way more I would say experience that's relevant than maybe the freshman next to their name I guess would account for. So I would say the thing that makes me excited about this team is that I feel like we've got almost a team full of starters, and for the other team that's going to be very tough to navigate. And with that, we have kind of the next piece of things would be, well, how are we going to kind of accomplish this goal of being the first women's basketball team to play in the NCAA tournament? And that's a tall task. Obviously, winning the conference tournament is a way to do that. Obviously, that gets you an automatic bid. But we feel like with our team this year and the talent we have and how deep we are, and sort of the continuity that we've had, that we feel like we need to build a resume through our non-conference play. And that's really how you go about, achieving what they call a high net ranking, which is kind of a combination of who you are playing, where you are playing them, but then also how you compete against them. How many points you win by or potentially lose by can impact your net. And so we've gone about trying to find the best teams that we can find, and we found 7 games in the non-conference against NCAA tournament opponents, starting with the first 3 on our schedule with Mississippi State, William & Mary, and then Florida Gulf Coast. And let me tell you, our team, has been learning recently just about the environment that we're going to be playing in at Mississippi State. But Mississippi State is a national powerhouse in women's basketball. Since I've been the head coach here, they have played for a national championship. They've made the Elite Eight, and they've been to 2 other NCAA tournaments. And it's going to be a loud, really tough environment with thousands of people. They're usually top 25 in the country in attendance, and they're number 1 in the country in the number of cowbells that they have. And so we are going to be in an environment that is as loud as we've ever been, to open things up. And obviously that's a chance to get a big time win early in the season. We come home after that and we get a chance to play William & Mary, who made the NCAA tournament last year, and then go down to Florida Gulf Coast, who was picked preseason number 1 in the Atlantic Sun, and last year finished 30-3, and one of their losses was actually against us at home on opening day. After that, we've been really fortunate that we were invited to come play in the WBCA Showcase down in Orlando and Disneyland, where we're going to get a chance to have some fun down there at a wonderful resort, and I hope you guys will get a chance to join us, but also play against some really quality competition in the University of Miami, and then also with Baylor University, who's currently ranked top 15 in the country. So those 2 games are going to be the type of games the selection committee for the NCAA tournament is going to be looking for, for us and how we compete in those games, if we can win those games to give us a chance at an at-large bid. After that, we play a lot of other games, but we cap things off with a game against NC State at home. And right now, they're ranked 11th in the country. And so that is going to be another wonderful opportunity where we have a little bit of revenge after playing those guys very tight last year, and Reynolds losing by 2, sort of in a buzzer situation. So I think that that's what's exciting about this team, is that you've been seeing kind of over the last 9 years a gradual build. And now I feel as though we're really poised for this breakout season. And it's because of the people, it's because of their belief in doing things together, it's because of our staff and our cohesion. But also it's because we've been able to develop a great fan base as well that's really been supporting us, that make us feel like we can beat anybody here at home again, in Belk Arena. So with that, that's kind of the preview piece of things. And I'm really looking forward to answering any questions you guys have. And being in a spot that we can, really talk about things about our team that you're interested in.
All right. Questions are coming in.
Yeah.
Let's go with so the growth of the women's basketball program at Davidson has been very exciting and impressive. The A10 seems to have impressive depth at the top this year. What do you think the program needs to improve on to get a bid, an at-large bid this season?
So obviously it starts with our non-conference schedule and being in a spot that we can hopefully, take on some of these Power Four teams and prove that, hey, we belong in the tournament over those guys. But playing in the league, we're really fortunate that, right now the University of Richmond is a top 25 program, which is going to be potentially a quad 1 or quad 2 game, depending upon how things go. Uh, um, that give us another chance at a resume win. George Mason is the same way, in that they, could be a quad 1, quad 2 win, but those games against those conference opponents are just so important that we win them, because they're wins that the NCAA tournament is considering to be quality wins. And so for us to take that next step, we obviously have got to have more consistency. And what we saw last year was that we had a really talented freshman class, but some of them weren't quite ready for the top end games. And that's what I'm excited about, is that these second year players in our program have just made such significant jumps. And I feel like we have the depth to go head to head with those guys.
Next question is from President Hicks.
Okay.
Coach, how have you had success in scheduling these Power Four teams when they know that we have a great chance to upset them? How did you swing a home and home with NC State? Go Cats.
Yeah, so Coach Wes Moore at NC State and I have got a great relationship. And 2 years ago when we started this, so the start of the home and home was last year, he reached out to me and said, I don't want to play you, but I need a game and I need it on this date. And I've tried everybody else, but I want to play you. And he said, well, will you just take the money? I only want to do it 1 year. And I said, no, 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 no. I want to play a home and home. And so he got off the phone, he thought about it, and he said, all right, we'll do it. And so for NC State, it was easy. And last year in the handshake line, he joked that he might be buying us out and not even coming back to Belk, but he's walked that back a little bit, and he's back on board to playing us. And he's actually decided to re-up. So we're going to be going back to their place the next year, and they'll be coming back again in 2027.
That's awesome. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
With all of our international players, it would seem that we have to be among the most diverse teams in the country in the origin of our players. Do you know if there are other schools that also have that kind of roster construction? And then I have a follow-up on that too.
I think that the game is becoming more and more international. I think programs are starting to go to Europe or to Australia or to Spain. I think every year over the last 3 years, there's been more international players coming across. And now with, name, image, and likeness, there is an opportunity for them to be able to earn money for playing college basketball as opposed to going and earning money playing professional basketball. So being able to balance the education piece along with the financial piece. My auto lights just kind of keep going off in my office. But I would say that, for us, we're not saying we just want international players. We're just looking for the best fits for Davidson College. And as of late, those kids that have chosen us have been international players.
So a follow-up to that is like, I think, we see it in the office and administrators see it. What does that recruiting of international players look like for you and your staff? How many trips overseas are there a year?
Yeah, so Coach James Jansen on our staff does a lot of the international recruiting, not all of the Canadian recruiting, but I would say a lot of the, European, Australian, World Championships, European Championships, and Jasmine Jenkins also made a trip this year to go to under 16s with him to have just another coach on staff that's starting to get eyes on these players. But there's several trips in the summer. We're allowed to go to them that are outside of these other recruiting periods. So we're not necessarily sacrificing an ability to see American players play. It's just the American players we're not allowed to watch at these other times that the European Championships or World Championships are going on. And so it's sort of a no-brainer for us to, sort of pursue those things. And I would say that, as we've done this, it's been easier to sort of recruit some of these international players because, they've gone to, in the NCAA rule book, unlimited official visits. And so with unlimited official visits, some of these American players, think unlimited could mean I could go on 300 of them, right? Like they could just go from one school to the next every day, and have these paid visits. And so some of the American players are really not ever really in decision-making mode because they don't really have to be with how easy it is for them to continue to visit other places. What we found with international players is that they have a very small window of time that they're going to do college recruiting. And so they end up saying, okay, well, I'm playing on this pro team, I'm playing on this developmental team, I have my education. For me to come all the way across from Australia or come all the way across from Europe, I'm going to visit three places that I've really well researched. I'm going to come over and be in decision-making mode. And then after those three visits, go back home and make a decision. And so there's just been much greater clarity with the international players and their recruiting than there necessarily has been with the American players as of late.
What have you seen so far in practice from our forwards who have less experience, Inez, Asha, Adina, that gives you confidence that they're ready for the athleticism and size that they're going to see in this challenging non-conference?
Yeah, I think that the experience Adina got this summer. So a little bit of background on Adina. She came in and had a pretty good, I would say September and early October for us last year. And then in the month of November, she had a little bit of an injury that kept her out for a couple weeks. And then we got her back for a couple more weeks, and then she missed another stretch of time with an injury. And the injury that she had made conditioning really challenging to do. And so for her, she sort of just got a little bit behind the eight ball with, college basketball because of those injuries, and then never really worked her way back into the rotation. She had a great postseason, and then this summer was able to earn a starting position on the Hungarian national team that also won a gold medal at the Division B under 20s. And she got to play a lot. And her coaches over there got her in great shape for us, which I'm very grateful for along the way. But she had a great experience, and then she's come back and quite frankly, just looks really mobile and is playing with a different energy and pop. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of growth from her. And then Asha has come in and has a great level of experience as well, back home in Australia, being part of the Bendigo WNBL championship team, where she got to play alongside of some WNBA players, some Olympians. She's learned a lot, and she's growing right now every single day. I feel as though her potential this season is going to be really up to, if she can continue to get better every day, but she's doing that right now. But she's got a wonderful skill set, being able to shoot the three, and she's very physical. For those of you that don't know, she was a judo champion as well. She has a family background in judo, and she is tough. So I'm excited about her. And Inez is very different. Is a great physical athlete. She's one of probably the best athletes we've ever had here at Davidson. And she's going to be very fast for the other teams, I would say forwards. I don't think there's going to be a faster forward in all of college basketball than her. And I think she's going to give a different look for us than Ash and Adina will kind of in that forward spot.
You touched on a little bit with Adina last year, but how healthy are we right now going into the season?
I would say we're pretty healthy. Knock on wood, obviously we just had a great practice. But everybody's available as it stands right now for our scrimmage that we have this weekend.
Talk a lot about the depth that we have this year and how exciting that is. How are you going to be able to work in that depth?
Yeah.
It's always a challenge with roles and playing time.
It's the best problem to have in all of college basketball. And We've kind of talked about it a little bit as a group. We're working with Liz Brigham, who's the executive director of the Hurt Hub, on some leadership development and just kind of team building type things. She's doing a tremendous job with her team over there with us. And really kind of what it comes down to is that there's only one agenda, and that's to win, and there can't be 15 agendas. It's just one agenda. Let's find a way to win. And every game this year is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be teams that we need to play bigger. There's going to be teams we need to play smaller. There's going to be teams that play a zone and we need to play more shooting. There's going to be teams that want to play really aggressive defense and we've got to play our best drivers, right? So it's going to be different from game to game, and it's going to be on our coaching staff to try to find the best five for those moments. But ultimately, it's not going to be maybe our five most talented players that are going to be out there. It's going to be the five best that play together. And so that's kind of the challenge right now is finding, that natural cohesion on the court. And so far, it's going really well.
Kind of follow up to that is, and it takes a long time and usually your whole non-conference to figure this out. But like, what would you say right now are the biggest strengths of the team?
I think that what's uncommon, I would say, for this year's group is that we have a lot of players that are very capable kind of in the post box area. And so what we have found is that we have a lot of bigger guards that really embrace physicality. And so the other team's point guard or the other team's two guard is really going to have a tough matchup because everybody right now we're playing at those spots, is able to kind of go into the post and score body to body really efficiently. And then we have the complementary pieces of that of having great shooting from our forwards as well, right? And so if we're able to get somebody that's a wing player into the post, like a Charlize Dunn, we've got Candace Leonafa, we've got Katie Donovan, we've got Inez, we've got, Adina and Asha that can all hit threes around them, right? And so I think it's that playmaking that we can get out of the post box that I would say has been a huge strength of ours this year, along with this year's team is much faster than last year's team. I think that last year's team was elite in the last 8 seconds of shot clock, and I think this year's team is going to be elite in the first 8 seconds of shot clock. And then I'm hoping we can still be great kind of in that middle 14 as well. But I do think this year you're going to see us playing much faster than we have in years past.
Obviously, the cohesion on the court is important. What about the cohesion off the court? Any team building things you guys have done or things to build team chemistry, integrate the newcomers, anything like that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, over the summer, we had most of our players come back in August, and we did a lot of just general, like just team activities. We went on a hike up into the mountains, where we went and saw some waterfalls just to spend some time together. There were the car rides. There was just kind of the walk up the hill, and I didn't realize it, but I think we signed up to go up about 1,000 steps to go find this waterfall. So we had a lot of time together. We did a trip to the Whitewater Center where we got to spend a lot of time. And I really challenged our group during those moments that this isn't your hangout with your best buddy time, but this is actually time to experience something new, with someone new. And so I think we did a great job of that. And then the work we've been doing with Liz has really been tremendous out of the Hurt Hub. Kelly from her team kind of did the Clifton strengths. So we started to learn about, what we naturally bring from talents or strengths to the program and starting to kind of look at things from that lens. And then now how do we leverage all of those strengths to kind of build a team that's really strong. And so it's been fun to kind of go through that stuff. But, our girls are, in the locker room, always together. They're always eating at Commons. A lot of them live together. I like to see them living with others, but they keep going back as upperclassmen and finding each other to live with. But I would say they're really bought into that, is being really good friends. And that's the thing I would say we're working on right now is how can we have this great friendship, but also, an ability to really challenge each other when we need to, on the court. I think that's kind of the growth point right now with such a young team.
Sylvie had a very impressive freshman
Yeah.
season and then unfortunately missed all of last season recovering from her injury. How exciting is it to have her back and
Oh
healthy?
yeah. Yeah, and I should have spoke about Sylvie earlier, but man, the recovery that she's had, she's worked really hard, and the injury that she had was very significant. She had a lot to kind of come back from and had a couple hiccups along the way that weren't her fault. They just, it's her body mechanics just trying to work things back into things. And she's been back practicing every day. But she's just a tremendous kind of 3 and D. She's loves that corner three. She can obviously use her athleticism to get to the basket, but her defense has really set her apart. I mean, early on her freshman year, she was just very assertive defensively and really added a lot of value there. And she's right back where she left off with that, which is great.
So we could probably do a whole nother Zoom call on this one and a whole nother
Okay.
presentation. But what does the growth and popularity of the WNBA and the Clark effect do for women's college basketball and for Davidson women's basketball?
Yeah, I think that for the first time, when Caitlin really came onto the scene, and there were obviously players that came before her that started to nudge this along, but you started to see just this electric player, and I joke, but there's a lot of similarities between Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry, right, in the way that they play. They're tremendous passers, they're great playmakers, and man, can they really shoot the ball. And so what you've kind of seen is that, you know, women's basketball games are, becoming events on campus, not just these secondary things. There's, beer that's being sold at games, there's concessions, there's, gear, there's, an environment, a band. I mean, these things are becoming really big things because of the popularity. And so here at Davidson, we're starting to do that too, which is tremendous. President Hicks, shout out to him, but he's really stepped up and said, "Hey, we gotta have beer at the women's games." So for those of you that want some beer, like we're gonna have a lot more beer at our games than we've had. But that's where it starts, right? Is providing a game experience that is something that you would pay to come to. And for us, we're doing that, and I think that our team is exciting. I think the brand and the style, is something that the fan base can kind of rally around because it's been pretty consistent. I think what you saw early on in my tenure here is, what you're seeing now, just with a little bit better players and a group that has more experience doing it together.
So I think this is all kind of cyclical because women's basketball now can be a revenue generator with units and all of these different things, and how that then connects to recruiting and everything we talk about day to day in your office. Uh, what schools do you consider Davidson's competition when we're recruiting players? And has that changed now over the years and as things have progressively changed with the portal and rev share?
Yeah, I would say right now, we're not regularly competing with the Atlantic 10 anymore for players. I think we've just found different ponds to sort of go to. Internationally, there's not as many, programs right now in the A10 that are recruiting internationally the way that we are. And sometimes for domestic players, we are going up against a few, I would say Richmond at times, St. Joe's at times, but a lot of the Big East. The Big East is sort of a big competitor for us. And then a lot of Power Four programs. We feel like we're unique enough with the being small with 2,000 students, having high academic standards, having a tight-knit community, and being a basketball-centric school. When I'm talking to recruits, it's men's and women's basketball or 1A and 1B at Davidson. And if you're talking to maybe a rebuilding ACC program, it might be football, men's basketball, baseball, some other Olympic sport that they're, chasing national championships in, and women's basketball is just so low on the totem pole. And for us, we're just not dealing with that. And that's really attractive to several, to a group of people. And we're recruiting some kids right now that, have got some regional schools that are powerhouses in their region, the mid-majors that are recruiting them, but we're the outlier school. They're not considering any other A10s. They're just considering us because of our uniqueness.
So going off of that, what does a typical, if there is a typical recruiting visit look like for a recruit? Where do you take them? Where do they eat?
Yeah.
What do you guys try to show?
Yeah, we're I would say, we're kind of getting them in maybe the night before the visit's going to start, going out to a breakfast with our staff and maybe with a couple of players for the recruit to get a chance to get to know them and their parents to sort of start to see the type of, person that we have in our program. And then from there, a campus tour is really important. And we always get told that our campus tours are way more informative than everyone else's, but we feel like the way that our campus is set up, it's just really intentional. It's not random. And so there's a lot to talk about. They're usually, and almost 99% of the time, they're going to get a chance to meet with, President Hicks and also with Chris Clooney, our athletic director, to kind of talk about the vision and the plan long term for women's basketball at Davidson and answer any other questions that they may have. There could be a meeting with a professor or career development, depending upon what their interests are. And then they're going to get a lot of time with the team. They're going to get a chance to watch practice, watch workouts, potentially get a chance to sit in on a team film session. And then from there, we are going to Haberdish. We love to sell just that story of Jamie Brown and what her and her husband have done, and building really a restaurant empire down in Charlotte, and kind of show off the connection that we do have to Charlotte. And then there'll be some fun activity that we do with our team, where we'll do something along the lines of whether it's going to Frankie's, which is sort of a go-karts and video games and putt-putt style thing, for them to get a chance with the team. Or we might do something really simple like go play spike ball out on the quad, right in front of, Chambers. There could be a trip to the Hurt Hub, a trip to Brick House. But really, we're trying to showcase the town, along with the connection to Charlotte, and then just give them every opportunity to get to know, and relate to their future teammates and get to know our staff.
So talking then, I guess, about how that goes into the culture that you've instilled in your program, with your current team, what intentional steps have you and your staff taken to build that culture? How does that culture ripple into the broader Davidson community and campus life? And in turn, how does it elevate your team's performance on the court while also resonating with future Wildcats you hope to recruit?
You guys
It's a
are
long
some
question.
great
These
questions
are great
askers. Yeah,
questions.
it's a great question. So our core values, so the basketball brand is share, shoot, stifle, but our core values are unity, integrity, and investment. And we really define unity as choose we. And what that means is you're not choosing me. And so we're constantly seeking players that want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. With integrity, obviously that's a huge part of the Davidson College culture, that we do talk a lot about in recruiting, but also it's, choosing to honor the program and all that you do, and want to have a legacy that is, this place is better, when you leave than when you found it. And so just really challenging our group to keep pushing forward. That's what every group has done since they've been at Davidson is, whether it was the women and the pioneers in the 70s that had no shoes and a student teacher coach, to the next group that started to get scholarships, to the next group that kind of fought for more things. But women's basketball still needs a bunch of fighters to keep fighting for more. And so that's sort of the integrity and legacy piece that we're trying to instill. And then investment is choose to improve. The Davidson College, we talk about this, is we're incredibly invested in women's basketball here. I mean, every year there's more offered to our players from an investment side of things financially and experience wise than the group that came before them. And so we want to keep getting better, and we want to not be entitled to those things, but really earn them every day. And so I think that all sort of comes into play when you talk about the whole Davidson College community is, we are a team of people that are trying to do the right thing, trying to do things together, for the greater good. And quite frankly, just want to keep getting better every day wherever our feet are, right? Is whatever we're putting our mind to and doing, we want to try to be doing it to the best of our ability.
I think that's really important too. We talk about the investment from the administration and Chris Clooney and President Hicks and how wonderful they've been. And then I just want to shout out some of the people on this call too right now. We have Kim Taylor, who's been wonderful to us, John McCartney, who's been wonderful, as Joel Campanella, Jim Richards.
Yeah.
There's so many people. The list could really go on and on. But it really is this special community that makes this program and elevates it to the point of now we're talking about making the program's first NCAA tournament in school history. We talked about this a little bit at media day earlier, but with the league's coaches recognizing Charlie, Katie, and Candace with preseason honors, who do you expect to surprise the A10 coaches and our fans this season?
Yeah, I think that the dark horse I think is, Kira. I think that last year she had some really big games and stepped up to some really big moments. And I think that she very much could have also been, in that consideration for all conference preseason honors. And as you kind of continue to look down the line, I think that, Inez is coming in with some great accolades, in that she's played a lot of high level basketball. And I think with her, you're going to just see someone that in the Atlantic 10 is just an absolute matchup nightmare, and someone that no matter what the other team is doing, she just has a great feel to be kind of playing alongside of any lineup, which I think is really exciting for us.
Can you talk a little bit about what our recent graduates are doing? Mallory, Izzy, Millie, and Thomasine.
Sure. Yep. So, It's really exciting, but Izzy's getting a chance to play in the WNBL, which is the highest level of professional basketball back in Australia. And she's getting to play for her home team in Sydney. And so she had her first game the other night, and she had a pretty good, I think, stat line. She got a lot of minutes, had some points, some assists, and I got to check with her. But after her first preseason game, she did message me saying she fouled out again. So I did have to kind of give her a hard time about that. But we're always worried about Izzy Fallon, and she's well aware of it. And now her Sydney coaches have got to deal with that. But she's doing great out there. I talk with her regularly. She's just, absolutely just first class human. Mallory Haynes is, believe it or not, the head coach back at her high school alma mater, Davidson Day. She's currently being a PE teacher for middle schoolers. And I think she's finding out that she's really excited about going to graduate school at the University of Miami next year for marine biology. She decided to do this gap year when she was trying to decide if she wanted to go play pro. So she had deferred her admission to University of Miami. And I think now, after teaching third and fourth graders PE, I think she's ready to be down there in Miami doing what she's really passionate about. But she's going to enjoy it. She's looking forward to coaching that team. She's done a little bit of assisting volleyball right now in the fall. But she's, around. She comes to a lot of practices right now, which is, really fun to have her back. Millie Pryor is right now in San Francisco, trying to sort of get a job. For those of you that know or don't know, she's been in a long time relationship with Alex Tui, who was recently drafted by the Golden State Warriors. And so they're out there right now, and he's kind of on a two-way contract between Santa Cruz and Golden State, so back and forth there. But she's over there with him right now and has a job offer on the table that she's kind of weighing the options of right now. And so we'll be able to announce something further on that soon. And then Thomasine Anupe is back home in Atlanta, where she is, doing some different like internships, fellowships, following around some doctors before she goes to PA school. So she's, doing great things, and I'm really excited for all of them.
We should see if 30 Inc. has any job openings for Millie while she's out there.
I wanted to plant that, didn't know who would be on this call, but yeah, we'd appreciate that. So
Um, so with Charlie being the lone senior,
Mhm.
any leadership that you've seen from younger players?
I think that really Charlize has done a great job. Katie Donovan has very much stepped up. She just has such a great understanding of why we do what we do and has been able to really help with the new players and the younger players, kind of like acclimation to our style of play. And Jasmine Timerson has done a tremendous job of just being a great connector and a really steady voice. And been great at kind of just pulling people into huddles and working through different scenarios. And so I would say that right now, those three have really stood out to me. But I think there's some others that are really working to still find their voice. And I think it's early, to see them kind of continue to grow in that.
So we have two questions left. One, can you talk about the community coming to games, packing Belk Arena, coming on the road if you're not local? Can you talk about what that means to you, what that means to your players and the program?
I think, we had a great crowd that showed up to our WBIT game, at JMU last year, where people kind of traveled to come to that one. And, it was a big time moment for our program, but it just really, kind of sat with our players as, man, like that was unbelievable that they cared that much to come to Harrisonburg, Virginia on a random day to watch us play. Right. And, we had a big house, and I wish we would have not given up that big run in the fourth quarter, and we would have kept it a little closer. But for us, it was a defining moment, I think, for a lot of our players. And the same at Belk Arena. When we come out of warm-ups for that last huddle where there's about 4 minutes left to go before game, and we see people, in their seats or see them standing, and ready to really cheer us on, it just gives our team such confidence that, hey, you know what, like this is going to be a great night. And so it means a lot. And I think that as we continue to build things, I've been staying very strong with my commitment to try to keep us really affordable, for families, for, people that just want to try us out for the first time. But our season tickets are $60, for the season. And, right now we've got 16 home games, it's less than $4. It's less than Starbucks for the week, right? So, for us, for adults, it's 60, for kids, it's 30. we really are, some of the best family entertainment, in the region. And in the winter, you get to go inside, it's kind of nice. And there's a lot of places to run around because typically we don't have those other bleachers pulled out. So for us, the more that we can get, you know, Belk packed, and I'm going to keep giving our players, or giving our fans access to our players, whether it's after games, we send them, into the stands to thank people for coming. We don't go to the locker room right away because I want them to engage with you guys. I want them to sign autographs. But you guys mean a lot to us. So keep bringing your friends, please. We need everybody there.
The last question, we're going to end with one more final question from President Hicks.
Okay.
And this may be a question for him, actually, that he's going to go need to petition the NCAA for. Does
Okay.
Becca Stimson have any years of eligibility remaining?
You know, let me tell you, I think that would be great if we could get her back in uniform. But unfortunately, I don't think I mean, I don't know. I've got a lawyer on staff. I don't know if you guys know, but Ryan Balder on my staff is actually a lawyer. So occasionally I'm like, hey, can we got anything over here we can do? So I don't know. Becca wants to get with Ryan. We can see what we can come up with. So
Never say never with the NCAA these days.
yeah.
Any final thoughts or closing remarks?
No, I just so want to thank you guys for being on this call. Obviously, your interest in our program to be on a call on a, random Tuesday night just means a lot to me. It means a lot to our team that I'm getting a chance to share these things with you guys. And I would just say, hey, stay in touch. If you want to come to a game on the road, please just email me. You don't have to email anybody else. You can email me. I'll make sure the right people get it. We'll get you on a pass list. You're not even gonna have to buy a ticket, but we always have extra tickets for road games. We would love to have you guys in the stands. I'd love to connect with you guys before, after the game, or have our staff, be able to communicate with you. But, I really want this to be a program where, hey, it's all of us, everybody, against these other programs. And I really believe in us. Just want to say thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. Thank you to everyone else on this call. We are 13 days away from Mississippi State.
Yep.
It's coming quick. We're really excited for the season and the talent ahead, and we can't wait to see everybody in Belk Arena.
Yes. Thank you so much, Austin.
Thanks, everybody.